now that it's become official that Trent Alexander-Arnold wants to go to Real Madrid, even though officially, we knew it for quite a while, it's interesting to discover and discuss all the other right-back options. And the one that is most prominent, or the one that seems to be making the most headlines right now, whilst I do have a video lined up about 5 other options that we could have and 5 different ways that Liverpool could play with that, is Jeremie Frimpong, a guy who a lot of us have watched a lot over the last few seasons because, of course, we're Liverpool fans and we are fans of Xabi Alonso, but also we're Liverpool fans and we're fans of looking at people who look like they could play a Klopp style of football. This is a guy who looks like he could play a Klopp style. The smile's good. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, also, that Instagram clip, the TikTok clip, whatever you want to call it, the "You're right, La" that he did with Ryan Gravenberch, it started tongues wagging, put it that way. And I've got to admit, there are a lot of, hey, should we get this guy? Hey, is he too much money? Hey, is he the right profile? Hey, is he too much of a good thing? I'm about to explain all of that to you. It's fair to say that when he burst onto the scene a couple of years ago, Micah Richards style, he had all the hallmarks of a great right back, right? Very different to Trent. And that's the weird thing. I'm not going to try and replace Trent in any of this. What I am going to try to do is have a great right back in the team who empowers the team to play the best style of football under Arne Slot. And having that kind of quarterback style right back is very different to having a ball carrier and a tenacious fighter in the side like Jeremie Frimpong. And I think what a lot of people have forgotten over the last, I said it on my video the other day and a couple of people agree with me, 12 to 24 months when we've seen like what feels like a decline or a deterioration or a change in the way that Trent plays, is that we've had a right back who has serially been injured. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But at the same time, when he burst onto the scene, he'd come out the finishing school of Man City's academy, a fantastic academy, going through a lot of great peak years. He'd gone to Celtic, where he broadly performed really well. I think in his first season, a lot of people very highly rated him, but also in his first few games, people were really excited about him. He was a very hot prospect, carried the ball really well. Like I said, the tenacity of him, all those kind of things impressed a lot of people. And anyone who can do well in that league is obviously going to get a big money move. And so off he went to Bayern Leverkusen, right? By a very different prospect when he first joined them, obviously building, but not building to what we knew was a title challenge at that point. In steps Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso changed fundamentally the way that we see that right back in Jeremie Frimpong, mainly because he put him as more or less a right winger. He put him as someone who was incredible in transition, amazing at hooking up with other players, and utilized him in a very dominant way when you have that back three, in the way that you can do when you have a back three. And so the profile of him very quickly became that, he was a kind of right winger who was adapted to be a right back. Whereas actually, he was just a very mobile right back, which is what he played for City. By the way, he also played at left back for City. But he also played there for Celtic, who played him as more of a traditional back four right back. So while people are busy profiling him purely on the way that he played at Bayer Leverkusen, which obviously is fair enough, that's where he's had his best years, let's look at him overall in the entirety in a career and work out where a Dutch-trained player or a Dutch origin player is going to play. By the way, when we say Dutch-trained, you could probably also attach that to someone like Pep Guardiola. Obviously, he's from the Cruyffian school of thought. But now he's from Pep Guardiola's school of thought, depending on how far back you go. Anyway, pictured here as a rat, Trent Alexander-Arnold has been very, very good for Liverpool in recent years. I'm joking. Chill. It's a joke. Obviously, we've got a lot of affection for him, but there he is. Just take a good look at it, guys. Look at him. There he is, wearing, let me circle it for you, a Real Madrid shirt. Is this a Photoshop? Fabrizio Romano doesn't care. He'll still post it. There he is holding a Manchester United shaped, oh no, sorry, that's a Champions League ball. That would not be Manchester United. My bad. Yeah, anyway, there he is for England. Broadly, a lot of people acknowledge the brilliance of this guy as a player. Brilliance? Cool. We are not looking like for like to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold, as many people have said for quite some time. Mainly because, first of all, Trent is a unique unicorn of a right back. He was shaped in that way by, obviously, Jurgen Klopp, but also through his own determination, his own chutzpah, should we say, and his own want to be this great player. And he is now that great player. He'll get that chance to go and go on that journey somewhere else. Good luck. He's been very injured over the last season, but even before that, I think a lot of people knew that the minutes that he put into these legs and the effort that he put in for Liverpool was not to be questioned. But like I said, over the last 12 months, that's 1, 2, 3 different injury periods. And again, a great ability is availability. Klopp's said it himself, Slot's said it himself, I'm sure Alonso will say it himself. But you can see he's covered a lot of Liverpool's big moments in that time. Corners, big one for us. Trent's delivery is fantastic. By the way, so is McAllister's delivery. By the way, so is Tsimikas'. By the way, there are so many people who've been great at delivery for Liverpool. Trent's delivery, because of corner taken quickly, is obviously seen very favourably. But at the same time, let's not diminish what other Liverpool players have. Again, we're not looking to replace that. In step, Jeremie Frimpong. First of all, I love his personality. He's got a great, confident personality. Like I said, a very front-footed player, someone who is clearly much stronger in the opposition's half than he is in his own, but that's because he's so strong in the opposition half that ultimately we're looking at him, with kind of tinted glasses when we're looking at the back, and he's a modern right-back. He's a modern full-back. He's not someone who's looking to step into that midfield area like Trent. He's someone who's looking to overlap, underlap, and combine with that winger out there, or like a very advanced attacking midfielder. And this is how his game has evolved over the last few seasons. You see how prominent it is here in this area and less prominent towards these kind of areas. It's not because he's not a good defender, it's because he's playing as part of like an advanced system. I don't actually know if Bayern were playing a back three at this time, but you can kind of see where it goes from here. In what most people would argue is his best season, this is him when they won the title, there he is, just absolutely marauding into the box time after time after time. Why is he able to do that? Well, first of all, the Xabi Alonso system set him up to do that. But secondly, he's picking up the ball and he's just driving forward with it. He's got great driving runs. He's really good at retaining that possession. There are a couple of times where, like the eye test wise, I look at him and I think, okay, would you be able to get away with a loose touch like that in the Premier League? I've got to admit, there's some ball control moments where I think in the Premier League, you're going to get a little bit more punished for that. And arguably, obviously Trent's first touch has been incredible, but there have been a few moments where it's been a little bit loose down the ears. And that's kind of because you're playing in a precarious position at fullback in the Premier League. I know that obviously you've only got kind of one aspect to look at out onto the field like that, but you've got to worry about the space behind you. There are a lot of people, you're probably playing against the opposition's best or second best player out there, or, like most attacking best player out there, either on the left or the right. And you need the legs. So there are going to be moments where you're going to make mistakes. You are going to be expected to rotate in and out with other people. And that is why this season, when we see this kind of heat map and you see his role slightly diminished, you see him pushed out maybe even slightly wider, you see his role played with a little bit by Xabi Alonso. That's, first of all, because other people have worked out what Bayer want to do there. Secondly, because the emphasis has changed within this Bayer team, and I don't really need to go into that right now, but they've remained at a very high level, just not the top level. And they're also, just bear this in mind, like in the Bundesliga, when teams work you out, how quickly has Xabi Alonso adapted to that? How quickly has this Bayer team been able to adapt to that? I'm not really sure that they've been able to get the maximum out of the team season on season. This was his best season. Now, arguably, that doesn't show the same heat map as what Trent has here. You see Trent very openly stopping people. I need to change that color because that's going to be a bit hard for you guys to see. Very openly stopping people in this area. Now, that's not to say that we wouldn't expect that of Jeremie Frimpong. But Frimpong's area where he looks to stop people is here, when he's kind of on the front foot, or predominantly like here. He's really good in a press. Now, don't get me wrong, Trent's good in a press, okay? And clearly he's proven that under Klopp. The width, the closing down of multiple areas, the shadow that you cast on the field, all these things are really important. But Frimpong is really, first of all, his speed makes him really good in that area. Players see him coming towards them and they panic. But secondly, he also just wins the ball back very, very well. He's 5'7", so he's not winning many aerial duels. So most of the time, he has to win it back in that area. He may be susceptible to a switch for that reason, but he may also be on for a switch for that reason, because his mobility getting down the field is incredible. That's something we've missed, I think, in this side more recently. And frankly, I think we've seen some of Trent's best performances when he's been marauding into this area. I think very few Liverpool fans can disagree with that. Like, I can kind of extend that area out to there. There have been a few games where he's been brought on and told, get their left back, get overlapping on Salah and have a creative input where Salah can then push more inside. And I'll break this down more for you in a second. And you can be putting in crosses, you can be running at the opposition, you can be having great combination play out there. That's where Trent has been really good. And I think, I'm not against seeing more of that. It's just we're not going to see it from Trent. So here's how we're laying out our formation. I mean, this is a very front-footed formation, should we say. I've only labeled striker. I've also just put Gakpo out there because that's the way it came, right? Salah, I think, will be pushed more inside. Frimpong will very much be on the overlap and looking to get into this kind of area. Liverpool's press will win the ball back in this area because you basically have a triangle of 3 of the best pressers in the game winning it back. It will fundamentally change how we play Mo Salah, though. Salah this season, in one of his most prolific seasons, was benefiting from how good Trent was at getting the ball and playing that little out doink, doink, and you're away. He didn't have to have his back to play as much, which was an aspect of the game he had massively improved, but he also had more of a front-footed approach. Frimpong might enable that a little bit more because people don't have to worry about Frimpong as almost like a second right winger for Liverpool. But at the same time, what we are going to see is Mo Salah moved inside into what Slot calls the hot zone. That's this area, right? I'm just going to shade that in for you just to make sure you know where that is. Salah entering that area and being able to play off a striker, being able to play a ball in and then back on to Frimpong, who's overlapping into this area, will be big for Liverpool. It's why Liverpool are going to focus on him in the first place, but it's also why I think Liverpool are going in for this guy. And it's fairly important to see why Liverpool want him. First of all, you'll have noticed the difference this season and last between the way that Slot changes the game and the way that Klopp changed the game. There are multiple times I can name in the past season where we won the title, where Slot has shifted games fundamentally because of A, the positioning of his players, but B, the positioning of the sub that he brings on. Now, that brings in someone like Conor Bradley, one of Liverpool's great players, but arguably someone who has played a much more traditional right-back role. This is him this season, this is him last season. You see basically Conor Bradley coming into his own, but at the same time, having to play, they're not junk minutes, but they're kind of add-on minutes to whatever it is that Trent had. He had a bit of a time where he put one hand on that position because Trent wasn't so much in the team. I will go back and reference this. This has been the availability of Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think now what we're looking at is a manager who's going to grow into the role, who's going to look to shift a lot of the emphasis in the side. You'll notice this formation here, I not only had a right back. I labeled him here as Frimpong because this is a profile video. That could be Bradley, but also Kerkez over on this side. I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to be Kerkez. I think Liverpool have been in for Kerkez for quite some time, but I think there are a couple of left backs and a couple of right backs we could go for that are going to shift the way that we play. Why? This season, our right backs and our left backs, our full backs broadly, have been pretty on and off, hot and cold. That's not to say they've been weak consistently. It's not to say they've been strong consistently. It's just to say there have been moments where we've had great things from our fullbacks. Andy Robertson is full pace, Tsimikas completely integrated into the system, Conor Bradley looking great against teams like Real Madrid, Trent looking more fit, but still not really tracking back in the way that we wanted him to, or all those kind of things. And now what we're looking at is two hyper-mobile, hyper-creative fullbacks who, first of all, have a much better fitness record. And when I say fitness, I mean availability, but I also mean in terms of you are just able to play the way we want you to play out in the field. But also really great at combining with these guys and enabling the elements that we want to see from Cody Gakpo. Kerkez able to underlap, almost Calafiori style. Frimpong able to overlap, Trent style, but also just like what we're looking for in a fullback. If you're pushing Mo more into this kind of an area, this inside area, and you're putting Frimpong on the outside, you're essentially playing two right-wing players there, like two hyper-attacking right-wing players there. First of all, sorry, Szoboszlai, I think that means a lot more of the defensive work on this side, and the same for Gravenberch, a lot more shifting over to this side. But it also means that we're going to need to see someone in this area, like Gravenberch or McAllister, who's really good at that little round-the-corner bounce pass. You've seen it in the last couple of weeks a lot more. We saw it against Spurs. We didn't really turn up against Chelsea, but you saw that round-the-corner pass very consistently against Chelsea. And you saw the players that were able to get on the end of it and the players that weren't able to get on the end of it. Or the players that were kind of, hey, that's a future thing. I'm here in the present. Tsimikas looked like he was playing really well. I really enjoyed watching him play. Trent, I thought from minute one against Chelsea, really didn't look like he was into it. And you can see, look at Slot, Look at Kirk. I mean, that's a terrible AI render of Kirkes. Let's just not keep doing AI renders. This is a Photoshop. I haven't paid the artist to do that, but someone's paid an artist to do that. And finally, these guys. Both these guys are going to have something to say about it. If you thought that the Jude Trent situation was one, I wonder what the Szoboszlai Kirkes situation is there. What we're looking at right now is the shift towards slot style of football, but also with very strong players. If he can, we bought in Slot because he was great at getting the best out of people. The thought is, if you've got a bunch of players who, you've squeezed the most out of at Feyenoord, imagine what happens if we arm you with a war chest of a summer and then we push this team forward. First of all, other sides are going to get better. Arsenal will improve with Zubimendi and a new striker over the summer. City are going to massively improve by bringing in attacking midfielders, bringing in people who can enable their best players like Haaland and, even the likes of Rodri in their side. Newcastle will improve. Manchester United will improve. Chelsea will improve. Forest. There are going to be a bunch of teams who will improve over the summer. And the reason that Liverpool bought in Richard Hughes and bought in Michael Edwards was A, patience, but B, the ability to be ahead of other people in terms of tactical trends. There are going to be a bunch of people shopping in the, I want to say in the shopping space that Liverpool were looking at last summer. Maybe it's not that much of a gap, but like 6 months behind, right? We now know where Liverpool were looking, so now we're going to look where other teams are looking. And there's a reason that Liverpool are consistently the team that when a big player wants to move, they'll go, well, he's linked with Liverpool. It makes a bunch of other people go, well, if he's linked with Liverpool, there must be a tactical element that means that we need to look at him. That's going to be key for Liverpool moving into next season. First of all, we want to hit our big targets. I think we've already hit a lot of these guys. I think Kirkes and Frimpong, or whoever we have at right back and whoever we have at left back, will be quite progressed. David Ornstein said the other day, Trent informed Arne Slot and Liverpool of his want to leave the club back in March. The international break, apparently, was when it was. I think that formalising that will have changed the fundamental relationship between Trent and Liverpool. But at the same time, I think that Liverpool will have known and will have been looking at Kirkes, will have been looking at Frimpong, will have been looking at all these guys and saying, well, if this guy's going to leave, first of all, it's going to strengthen our position in negotiations if he does end up staying, and we have nothing to lose if we're going out and negotiating with Frimpong. We have nothing to lose if we're going out there and negotiating Kirkes, and the left-back situation very different. But what we're showing is a strong hand. Hey, if you leave, we're going to replace you. It's not going to be like, oh no, however will we replace Trent Alexander-Arnold? No. We know that Liverpool are going to try and move on from players very quickly, and similar to the same principles they've always stuck to, the Moneyball idea, that island of misfit toys. The reason I always reference Moneyball is because fundamentally the system is built on Moneyball. Getting the most out of players, finding underlying metrics which mean we can squeeze the best out of those guys, but also making the things that you think are a sure bet even more of a sure bet, and making sure they fit your managerial style, system, and idea. But secondly, also, when I talk about that island of misfit toys, what I'm talking about is the reason that the misfit toys all fit together was because they had a fundamental understanding of what it was they were looking to do. As everyone says in Moneyball, they get on base. A similar thing in football is just fulfilling certain metrics. And Liverpool boil a lot of players down to, while they look at all these underlying numbers, one number that they can say, how well does this player fit this team? You're looking at the kind of similar relationships to the one that you get in FIFA, right? Like, what's the relationship between all these guys? Not, is this guy good on his own little island? It's fundamentally, does he make Szoboszlai better? Does he make Salah better? Does he make Konate better? Does Konate make him better? Like, what we're looking at is a system here, and that relies on Klopp, Slot, or whoever you want to call the manager, but it also relies on Edwards, Hughes, all these guys to squeeze the best out of these guys, to say, hey, we've noticed this in your game, we're going to turn that up and we're going to make you better in that fundamental style. And that leads me on to the kind of final element here that I think is great about Frimpong. Frimpong's, like a lot of people speak about him in a very attacking way, but they don't speak about his tactical intelligence. He's gone through City, Celtic, and now obviously been under Xabi Alonso, one of Europe's most sought after coaches. And obviously at one point Liverpool were looking at Xabi Alonso, but I think he's got a different career path. First of all, he also played a back three. I don't think Liverpool wanted to shift to that. But secondly, he's also just a great manager who has his own style. I think there'll be one day where we may see him at Liverpool, but obviously it's not immediately. Frimpong is fantastic at bringing the ball forward and his dribbling skills. I cannot understate those dribbling skills. He shifts his body quite a lot, the herky-jerky style of what he does. But if he doesn't get past a player, if he doesn't think he can go past them because the space is closed off or his passing options have diminished, bring him here. I mean, you can do it here anyway. The ball will go to Soboslai, the ball will go to Grav, the ball will go to Konate. The likelihood is that if McAllister drops back in or say, Gravenberch comes over there or whatever, Frimpong is not scared to just look back and give someone else the ball and just say, okay, it's not working here. I'm going to need to move. I'm going to need to become the right wing option. I'm going to go, and I've got the ball over the top. Two things. First of all, it's great that you can have a player who understands relationships with other players out in the field. Trent more recently has had a lot of frustration, and certainly as a fan had a lot of frustration around this idea he's going to play a Hollywood ball or this great ball out wide, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That was much more forgiven, should we say, in the Klopp system than it is in the Slot system. Slot wants to keep hold of possession if he can. Slot wants to move the opposition around and reset if possible. Trent's good at that, but Frimpong, Kerkez, they'll be much more coached and fundamentally au fait with those ideas. I think Trent wants this new challenge because he's realised Liverpool isn't going to be the same challenge for him. Another player is going to want to come in, put their stamp on that and make it theirs. That goes for Kerkez. That also goes for Frimpong. Now, first of all, I think a lot of people don't ever link these two players together, right? For a little while they did. For a little while we had that whole Andy Robertson is excellent on the left wing and Trent is excellent on the right wing. And they kind of spoke about the balance of the team and how Klopp was very good at getting that balance. Andy had always been slightly more defensively minded than Trent, right? Fair enough. But Frimpong and Trent, neither of them are defense-first players, should we say. It doesn't mean they're not smart, they can't make tackles or all those kind of things. I just think it means that they will always rely on the centre-back behind them and the space that someone like Alisson can, get off his line and cover. Because there are going to be times where someone goes around Konate, Alisson needs to make himself big. Let's hope Mamardashvili is good at that as well. I think that's where people underestimate Alisson. They look at Kelleher and they go, well, he's a fantastic shot stopper. He's really good at distribution. They miss the fundamentals of Alisson, which is he's really good at basically making his box even bigger and, making Liverpool's back line 10 feet further forward, right? Frimpong, his relationship will be, we're going to evaluate it much more on this than we are on this. Because I think this guy is so key, as is probably the centre-back we end up signing in the summer if Joe Gomez and indeed Joel Quansah end up moving on or shifting their roles. Fundamentally, it's going to push Salah inside, but it's also going to mean there are going to be moments where Frimpong can underlap on Salah, push Salah a little bit wider and be one of those players to finish. Not only that, but obviously we're laying them out as a formation here. In transition, Liverpool have been great this year. Frimpong is a great transitional player. Mo Salah is a great transitional player. There have been times when Mo has been looking to transition in play and there's just been no one there on the right to support him. Fundamentally because Nunez has misread plays, Diaz is out there, and we're seeing Trent broadly not able to get on his bike enough to be able to support him. That's not going to be the case with Frimpong. Expect more transitions. Expect Liverpool forcing more transitions and expect Liverpool to try and catch the opposition more on the back foot next season. It's not down to the fact that, hey, we don't trust Trent to do that. We don't trust our players to do that. But I think this season would have been a bit more of a chameleon style side. And I'll refer you back to this guy. If you were to compare his play to anyone, because he's been brought in at Liverpool, it would be Klopp. But he's played a little bit of Pep ball at times. He's played a little bit of Arteta ball at times. He's been able to go up against Enrique's and other guys and understand those and coach the players into strong positions when facing those people. Jeremie Frimpong and his adaptability, but also his pace, will allow you that adaptability. It will allow you that the fundamentals being solid, but ultimately the tactics and the coaching being something that Slot can then express himself through. I think there have been times where we've not seen that quite that much this season. And ultimately, I think that lost us the game against PSG, the lack of adaptability at the back and sometimes the element of fear back there. But also there have been times where we needed someone who can carry the ball, not that Trent's not a good ball carrier, with a kind of bravery that we will see through Frimpong. Again, not a criticism of Trent, an evaluation of Frimpong. I worry a little bit in his fundamentals in terms of there are times where I feel like he just sort of bounces the ball through opposition players and it's a bit like, well, that made it through, off we go. That's my main fear with him in the Premier League. I think he will get found out a couple of times, and there will be his pace and his recovery tackle will be part of his game, I think, in his first season, a lot more than we see it in the long run at Liverpool. But I love him as a guy. I think he seems like a really great personality. I think he seems like a really great player. I think he seems like a really great aspect of your team. And if you're going to replace Trent, don't try and replace him like for like. Fundamentally change your position. And that's what they would do with Frimpong. It's what they do with Kirkes on the other side. And I think we're going to see an identity a lot closer to Slot than we are with Klopp. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know, overall what your thoughts are on where Liverpool are going to go next season with tactics, those kind of things. And do you think that, if Liverpool, especially if Liverpool changing their right back and their left back, we're going to see a style close to what Slot wants to play? Because I certainly do. I'll chat to you in a little while. Much love.